All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Prime War Breakdown. Now, this is another one of those figures that during the actual Transformers Prime era, only ever actually saw a release in the ARMS Micron line in Japan, so it never really got a full Western release, which, kind of sucked at the time, because, the only figure that we really got of this character was, the Legends version of Breakdown, and he was kind of a major character in the show. This mold always looked really good, but it was kind of unobtainable for a lot of people for a long time until, of course, they did that reissue in 2020 with the Jet Viacon and War Breakdown 2-pack, and I was able to get my hands on this guy. And yeah, it's a really, really nice figure, I've got to say. He looks really awesome in his big kind of truck mode here. It rolls pretty nicely. He also comes with Zamu, this little ARMS Micron rhinoceros that turns into his hammer in robot mode. So, if you're looking for strictly show accuracy, then obviously in the show his hammer did not turn into a rhino, and this guy only mostly gets the look across, and then he doesn't have the extra guns and stuff that would pop out of his vehicle mode and out of his shoulder. In robot mode, he doesn't have anything like that. He doesn't have a more accurate hammer, but in terms of just being a representation of this character, I feel like this is still a really cool set, and I do like the little rhinoceros mini con. Now, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here they are with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see, yeah, the scale mostly works. I feel like he could stand to be a little bit bigger, but it's really hard to tell because it's because I usually, my first thing that I look at when I'm trying to compare the relative size of vehicle modes is their windshields, and how his windshield is really small and then his is really big. But it could also just be an armored truck that really has actually really small windshield, so that if it's getting shot at, then there's less of a chance of it actually hitting the driver. So I feel like that scale works fairly well. He's a fictional vehicle anyway. He's not based on any real car. And likewise, here he is with the recent legacy knockout figure, who they were kind of buddies in the show there. And again, I think that works fairly well in terms of this truck being a lot bigger. For another Transformers Prime comparison, here he is with the regular Viacon mold, which is kind of a small car in and of itself, so I feel like that works out even better. Just for a bit of fun, here he is with Legacy Breakdown, just so you can see two different breakdowns. And I consider them to be different characters because they don't share a lot in common, other than the fact that they're Decepticons. They've got blue in their color scheme, and they both have red faces in robot mode, and obviously that they're named Breakdown, but that's what they look like together. And then here he is with first edition Bulkhead. And yeah, I feel like depending on what kind of vehicle you're considering this Bulkhead to be, the scale doesn't totally work. He's a bit too big, because in the show he really was more of just a kind of off-road SUV type vehicle, whereas with this he would have to really be much more of a big armored truck like Breakdown. And just proportionally, the wheels are bigger, the windshield's much bigger, he's thicker, he's wider. In the show he would have been a smaller vehicle than Breakdown, even though they scaled pretty, they were pretty similar heights in the in robot mode. But still, if you want this to just be more of a armored military truck or something like that, then it can really kind of be whatever size. So that's what they look like together, for whatever it's worth. But yeah, to get onto transformation, we'll just put Zamu off to the side there. He's got some neat stuff going on. Now, I guess I'll talk about this now and then again in robot mode, but the other kind of infamous thing about this set, and like I said in the Jet Viacon review, I don't know how much this was the case for the original releases of these figures, because I've never handled them, but these guys came with a set of foil stickers to be most of the kind of detailing on the figures. And on the Jet Viacon, there's only really one or two that are really bad, but on him, it's really most of them. You see the worst of it in robot mode for sure, but he's got this bumper back here, which is just a silver, sticker kind of wrapped around the whole thing, and it looks a little bit ugly and peels up in spots. These bits on the side are stickers and that peel up. The front detail is mostly okay, but even this, like the front headlights are kind of like peeling up and stuff like that. Like the little tiny ones I think do okay, but really you see the worst offenders of the sticker detail in robot mode, but it really is a much bigger issue on him than it was on Jet Viacon, and it wasn't great on him either, so, but whatever. But yeah, to start off transformation, basically you want to take the back bumper here, and it kind of untabs from the section. You just want to bring it up like that. Then these side panels will actually tab in a few sections here. It's got yeah, I think there's a tab there. I don't know. There's something over here that kind of like locks in over here. And then this tab goes behind this panel, and this tab goes behind this panel. So you just want to kind of loosen that up on both sides. Honestly, it's not very difficult to loosen up, but you do want to pay special attention to that when you're going back into vehicle mode. And then you can unfold them at the knees here. And then on both of these sides here, what you can do is you take this panel and it kind of untabs from this, and then you rotate it around and simultaneously rotate this bit around so that you want it to kind of like come over here, and it will go onto this tab on the inside of the leg. So you want to rotate it so it's the right angle, so it's like that. Then you can flip out the foot. It can be kind of a tricky procedure, but once you know where stuff goes, it's not really that difficult. It's just kind of, you know, you have to get it, move things in a specific order kind of simultaneously. And there we have the legs pretty much all done. We rotate them around at the waist. Then let's adjust the camera here a little bit so we've got some room to work with. And just before we continue on here, I just want to highlight that he does have some really nice sculpted detail on the like inside here, which of course was resculpted for when they did the like retool of this figure where he had the like, you know, Silas character on the inside of it. You know, spoilers, I guess, for Transformers Prime at this point. But yeah, he ends up getting kind of turned into a mech suit at a certain point. But yeah, to continue on here, the arms, you basically want to take the windshield here and kind of just bring it out like this and then down around it. There's some clearance issues, but once you get it out, it's okay. And then when you take the arms here and they actually come out like this, and then you want to sort of like simultaneously like rotate out the shoulder pad to like clear these spikes from around here. It's kind of an awkward thing, again, that you have to sort of like do simultaneously, moving a few joints at once, and it's, you know, it's always a little bit cumbersome, but again, once you got it, I think it kind of makes sense. And then yeah, you bring these down like this so they kind of sit properly, and then you take this part of the chest and then just fold it in like that, and then take these parts and they slide out like that, and then you can take the whole thing and collapse it down to kind of reveal his head there. Then with the arms, you want to rotate them forward like this, and then take the actual windshield bits and then rotate them around, which also rotates out the hand, which I think is a neat trick there. And then you just take this section here and it'll just double hinge up and become the backpack with the tire on his back there. And there we have War Breakdown in his robot mode. And yeah, this guy looks fantastic. I think like my only real complaint about, you know, the way that they did this this transformation is he does kind of have these like weird bits kind of hanging off of his hands there, but that's really it. Other than that, he looks pretty spot on to how he did in the show. Head sculpt is great with the red face there. I think that looks awesome. Now, obviously, we can give him his weapon here for Zamu. Basically, what you want to do, it's pretty simple. You can probably guess how it works. Is you just take all four legs and fold them up like that. Take the rhino head, flip it into the main body, and then take the little tail section and fold that down, and there he has his hammer. Now, he can hold that just like a regular hammer, so you can just slot it in his hand. They're kind of a pretty tight connection, but and that looks okay. I mean, I think that, you know, usually if you want a figure to be like holding a hammer like that, you'd want it to have kind of like a longer handle to make it look a little bit better. But how this, God, that's a miserable sound. The way you usually do it, and the way I usually do it, which is why I don't encounter that all that often, is what you can do is you can actually flip his hand back over and then plug this directly into the port. Look at that. It's even got like some of the paint from the inside of the hand. Maybe I've never tried that before. Wow, that's interesting. But yeah, you can just plug it in to the underside of the windshield section here to give him his proper hammer hand. And that looks okay. I feel like it doesn't work quite as well as some of the other, you know, Transformers Prime figures that had the hands flip away feature, just because there still is like this kind of like empty section here. But for all intents and purposes, I think that that usually works. In most poses, I think it looks good from most angles, but that's how that works. But yeah, like I said, he unfortunately doesn't have you know, like a gun that can plug into his shoulder or anything like that. He does have ports up there, so if you you wanted to 3D print a little gun or got an upgrade kit, then that would work, but it doesn't come with anything like that, unfortunately. But yeah, once I get him back into his Rhino mode here, in terms of articulation, well, to start off just with a little Rhino guy who also has all the stickers, and they're not great on him. They like peel up, and some of them like literally just go over the joint for where this attached, so it has just like this gross bulge in the middle that wasn't accounted for when they made the stickers. But yeah, with him, I mean, it's pretty much what you'd expect. All the little legs can tilt forward and back, and then the head can tilt down a little bit, and that's pretty much it. With Breakdown himself, the head is on a ball joint. It gets a fairly good range, although obviously he kind of has to look up a little bit to turn his head to the side, just because his chin kind of just runs into things. Also, I find that weirdly, like his head usually wants to kind of like pop back into looking straight forward, unless you like tilt it up, which is a little annoying, but whatever. The shoulders here, they are attached at ball joints here at the shoulders, so they get a good amount of like wiggle around, but then, you know, that also allows them to rotate, and it also allows them to get like kind of a backwards butterfly joint. And then in terms of the outward movement, it's actually this joint here. So he can't, you know, his shoulder pad ends up bumping in there, so you get a little bit of movement from the ball joint and then a little bit of this before it runs into the bumper. But he doesn't have great sort of like outward arm movement, but it's enough, I feel like, for most poses. Then he's got a bicep swivel right there. A little under 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, not a great elbow joint. I don't think, yeah, no, his wrist is just it might not be a solid piece, but yeah, I think it is a solid piece and then just painted. And then he's got a waist cut, which is a little bit offset towards the front, so like it kind of like disjoints itself when you rotate it around. It looks a little bit strange, but for just like subtle movement, I feel like it works. Hips are on ball joints, can go forward only about that much, back about that much, out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel there, just on a mushroom peg. He's got, again, under 90 degrees of bend at the knee, and then the feet can tilt forward and back, but cannot tilt out to the side. So yeah, he's not really got like great articulation. He's got enough to kind of, you know, mess around with. Like no one joint is so limited that it really ruins anything, but most of his joints are a little bit more limited than you'd like them to be. I think the one thing that he does do well, which is nice, is like the, you know, expressiveness of the like shoulder ball joints. I feel like that works fairly well, but in terms of getting him into like really dramatic poses, you are kind of limited by like the fact that neither the elbows or the knees go, you know, a full 90 degrees. The shoulders can't even go a full 90 degrees. The head is a little bit, you know, limited in terms of its, you know, area of like operation. So yeah, he's not great, but it's not terrible either. Now, in terms of comparisons in this mode, again, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see what he looks like with an average size deluxe there, obviously bigger, being a Voyager class figure. Here he is again with both the regular and the Jet Viacon, who he was packaged with, so you can see what he looks like with them. Again, you know, like I feel like he would have been a little bit bigger compared to them in the show, but it works relatively well. Here he is again with Breakdown, just for posterity's sake. Both got red faces and blue. Cool. Here he is again with Legacy Knockdown. I keep calling him Knockdown. Why is that? Knockout. Just so you can see what... I think that they look really good together. Obviously, again, in the show, I think he would have been a little bit bigger compared to Knockout. And maybe we'll be getting a new Breakdown sometime soon. But, you know, I'm pretty satisfied with this one, honestly. So I wouldn't be bothered if they didn't do like a new version of Breakdown. I think that, you know, these two look really good together. And then here he is again with first edition Bulkhead. So you can see, yeah, scaling's not quite right. Like Breakdown was actually supposed to be a bit bigger than Bulkhead, or if not, about the same size, and he's a little bit smaller. This is pretty much just due to the fact that, like, the difference between the RID molding, like the Transformers Prime RID, and the Transformers Prime First Edition, is the First Edition figures were a little bit larger in scale. So, you know, they're not quite up to snuff. That was really kind of like one of the price cuts of that era, is they made figures a little bit smaller. That was like the shift between First Edition and RID. So, you know, they don't quite scale well, but they're both big, bulky guys. So at least they're mostly the same size. Just instead of him being a little bit bigger, he's a little bit bigger. So, whatever. But yeah, you know, I feel like generally he's a little bit smaller than I'd like him to be. And some of the posability is a little bit more limited than I like it to be. But I really can't help but love this figure. I did just get in the mail some Toy Hacks stickers to replace all the really awful stickers on him, because like even in robot mode it's even worse. He's got like these 4-part knee spikes which are peeling on like all 4 corners, which just doesn't look good. And then like these, you know, these panels get this blue sticker which actually like goes past another piece for transformation, so of course it's peeling up. These are kind of peeling up. I think, yeah, it's mostly just stuff on the legs. I mean, he's got like these things from vehicle mode on the shoulders, which don't look good, but really all the stuff on the legs is like the big issue with him. And then obviously the bumper in the back here. But yeah, so maybe I'll, you know, get a little revitalization of enjoyment out of this figure, because I do really like this mold. I think it looks great in both modes, despite the, you know, sticker issues, which, you know, I'm hopefully fixing. And yeah, you know, like I said, could be a little bit bigger, could have a little bit more posability, but overall, it's just a really nice figure, and I really can't recommend it enough if you're capable of still getting it. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Prime, War Breakdown, and Zamu.